The training yard smelled of dust and metal. The sun above was harsh, burning the ground into a hard surface where blood and sweat quickly dried. Recruits stood in a straight line, their bodies stiff, their eyes locked on the giant figure walking in front of them. He was the drill master. The drill master was not just a soldier. He was a legend among warriors. His skin was dark and rough like stone, his arms heavy with muscle, and his voice carried like thunder. He had trained many species across the galaxy. Some became soldiers, some became corpses. He never cared which. On this day, a new group of recruits had arrived. Tall insectoids clicked nervously with their mandibles. Reptilian fighters stood proudly, their tails swaying behind them. Metallic-skinned cyborgs looked forward without emotion. And then there was the smallest figure in the line, a human. The human's name was Daniel, but here names did not matter. To the drill master, he was nothing more than the fragile one. The drill master stopped in front of Daniel. He looked down at the human with a slow smile, a smile that had no kindness. "Day one," the drill master said, his voice like stone grinding. "Some of you will survive. Most of you will not. But all of you will learn one thing today: pain." The recruits stayed silent, their faces hard. Only Daniel felt his heart beating too fast. He had heard the stories before he arrived. He knew this was not a normal camp. This was a place where weakness meant death. The drill master's eyes locked on Daniel. He spoke loudly, so every recruit could hear. "Look at this one. Small bones. Soft skin. Weak. Humans are always weak." A few recruits laughed. The insectoid clicked its mandibles, amused. The reptilian flicked its tongue in mockery. Daniel clenched his fists, but said nothing. The drill master's grin widened. Perhaps he thinks he can survive. Perhaps he thinks he is strong. Without warning, the drill master's hand moved. It was faster than anyone expected. A giant fist crashed into Daniel's face. The sound was sharp, bone-breaking. Blood burst from Daniel's nose as his body fell to the ground. The line of recruits erupted in laughter and cruel whispers. Daniel groaned, his vision blurry. The world spun around him. He could taste blood in his mouth. His nose was broken. On the very first day, the drill master's voice boomed above him. "This is what happens to the weak. This is what happens to humans. Remember it well?" He turned and walked back to the line, his heavy steps shaking the ground. The other recruits stood taller now, some proud, some afraid. But Daniel remained on the ground, his face pressed into the dirt. For a moment, he thought about staying down. He thought about the pain, the humiliation, the hopelessness. Every part of him screamed to give up, but something deep inside him refused. Slowly, shaking, Daniel pushed his hands against the ground. His arms trembled, his head spun, but he rose to his knees. Blood dripped down his chin, painting the dirt red. The recruits went quiet. None of them expected him to stand again. The drill master turned and looked back, his eyes narrowing. "Still alive?" he asked with mock surprise. Daniel wiped the blood from his mouth. His nose was crooked, swollen, and broken. His body ached, his pride shattered. But in his eyes, there was no surrender. The drill master studied him for a moment. Then he gave a short laugh. "Good. Suffer more. You will learn." Training continued. The recruits were forced through brutal drills. They ran under the heavy gravity of the planet, their lungs burning with every breath. They lifted stones larger than their bodies. They fought against machines designed to break them. Daniel struggled with every step. Blood dripped from his nose, but he did not stop. Every time he fell, he got back up. His body screamed in pain, but his mind whispered one thing over and over: don't quit. Don't let him win. The other recruits began to notice. At first they mocked him, but by the end of the day, some of their laughter was gone. He was slower, weaker, smaller, but he refused to fall for long. When night finally came, recruits collapsed in their bunks. The drill master dismissed them with a wave, satisfied that many would break within a week. But his eyes stayed on the human. Daniel sat in silence, pressing cloth against his broken nose, his hands shaking. He did not sleep. He only thought of the drill master's words and the laughter of the recruits. He remembered the fists that shattered his face. He remembered the pain. And in that moment, he made a silent promise. One day, it will make him bleed. The stars above the camp were endless, cold, and far away. But Daniel's eyes burned hotter than all of them. Day 1 was finished. The breaking had begun. The next morning came too fast. The sky above the camp was still dark, the stars fading as the first light touched the ground. A horn blasted, loud and sharp, pulling every recruit out of their bunks. Daniel sat up slowly. His nose was swollen and crooked, the pain sharp with every breath. Dried blood marked his face. He had barely slept, but he forced his body to move. Around him, the other recruits prepared quickly, their alien bodies already used to harsh conditions. Daniel, small and human, looked weaker than all of them. When they gathered in the training yard, the drill master stood waiting. His massive frame cast a shadow across the ground. He scanned the recruits with cold eyes until they stopped on Daniel. "You're still here," the drill master said, his deep voice carrying across the camp. "I thought the human would run away in the night. But no matter. Today, we'll finish you." The drills began. The recruits were forced to run, across the field with heavy stones strapped to their backs. The insectoid recruits scuttled quickly, their 6 legs moving with ease. The reptilians ran strong and steady, their muscles built for power. Daniel's legs trembled under the weight. Every step felt like fire burning in his chest. His broken nose made it harder to breathe. He stumbled, fell to his knees, and the drill master's voice thundered at him. "Get up, human." Daniel pressed his hands to the dirt, pushed, and rose again. Step by step, breath by painful breath, he kept moving. The next drill was worse. They had to lift massive blocks of metal above their heads and hold them until their arms gave out. Daniel's arms shook almost immediately. The weight pressed down like a mountain. The drill master watched closely, waiting for him to collapse. But Daniel refused. His whole body shook, his vision blurred, his muscles screamed. But he held on longer than anyone expected. Finally, the block fell from his hands, crashing into the dirt. He dropped to his knees, gasping. Laughter came from the other recruits, but it was weaker than before, by the end of the day. Daniel's body was covered in bruises. His nose throbbed, his arms ached, his legs felt broken. When the drill master dismissed them, most recruits dragged themselves to their bunks to sleep. But Daniel did not. When the camp grew quiet, he slipped out into the night. His body hurt, but his mind was sharper than ever. He found an empty corner of the training yard. The ground was cold, the air sharp. Under the faint light of alien moons, Daniel began to move. Push-ups, sit-ups, running laps, small exercises, but done over and over again. His body screamed at him to stop, but he refused. He remembered the drill master's fist smashing into his face. He remembered the laughter of the recruits. Those memories fueled him. Night after night, Daniel trained in secret. While others slept, he pushed himself harder. He studied the drills, the techniques the drill master used, the way the alien moved his feet and hands. He watched every sparring match with careful eyes. He was not the fastest, not the strongest, but he could learn. The days were brutal. The drill master targeted him more than anyone else, forcing him to carry heavier loads, to fight longer, to suffer more. Every insult was sharp, every strike painful. But Daniel began to change. The first week, he could barely finish the drills. By the second week, he lasted longer. By the third, he was no longer the slowest. The other recruits started noticing. The insectoids stopped laughing when Daniel carried a weight twice his size across the field. The reptilians stopped mocking when Daniel stood back up after being knocked down for the 10th time. Still, the drill master pushed harder. He wanted to crush this human completely. During sparring practice, he paired Daniel against the strongest opponents. Daniel lost every time. He was thrown to the ground, beaten, slammed into the dirt. But each time, he stood up again. One day after another harsh sparring match, Daniel lay on the ground, chest heaving, blood dripping from his lips. The drill master stood over him, arms crossed. You are weak, human. You cannot win. You will never win. Daniel coughed, spat blood, and forced himself up on shaking legs. His voice was low, almost broken, but steady. Then I'll lose 1,000 times, he said. But I'll never quit. The drill master's eyes narrowed. For the first time, he did not reply. He simply turned and walked away. That night, Daniel trained harder than ever. His body was on the edge of breaking, but he kept going. Every push-up, every strike, every drop of sweat carried one promise. One day, the drill master will not break me. One day, I will break him, and slowly, in the silence of the night, the human began to change. His muscles grew harder, his movements sharper, his will unshakable. The pain became part of him. The weakness turned into strength. The silent struggle had begun, and it was only the start. Weeks turned into months. The training camp ate recruits alive. Some were carried away in stretchers, broken beyond repair. Others disappeared in the night, too weak to continue. The drill master never slowed down. Every day, he designed new ways to crush the recruits. And every day, his eyes always returned to one figure, the human. Daniel was still smaller, still weaker in appearance, but something about him had changed. His movements were sharper now. His body carried scars and bruises. But his spirit was solid like stone. The drill master hated it. One morning, he gathered the recruits in the arena. The ground was a circle of sand and dirt, the walls lined with cold metal. The air was heavy with tension. Today was sparring day. The drill master's voice boomed. Today, you will fight each other. Not to kill, but to break. If you cannot stand, you are useless. If you cry for mercy, you do not belong here. The recruits glanced at one another nervously. Many had already suffered too much. They knew these matches would be cruel. Daniel's name was called first. He stepped forward, his heart steady, his body sore but ready. Across the circle, his opponent appeared one of the reptilian fighters. Taller, stronger, covered in scales. The reptilian smiled with sharp teeth. The drill master's grin returned. This will be quick, he said. The fight began. The reptilian moved fast, striking with heavy blows. His claws tore at the air, his fists slammed like hammers. Daniel dodged one strike, but was caught by another. Pain exploded across his ribs, and he hit the ground hard. The crowd of recruits laughed. Too weak, one of the insectoids muttered. But Daniel rolled to his side, forcing himself back to his feet. Blood trickled from his mouth, but his eyes were sharp. He lifted his fists again. The reptilian snarled and attacked again, confident he would end it soon. His punches were heavy, each one enough to drop a normal human. But Daniel did not fall. He took the hits, his body shaking, his legs barely steady but still. He stood. The laughter of the recruits began to fade. Minutes passed. The reptilian grew frustrated. His strikes slowed, his breathing grew heavy. Daniel, beaten and bruised, kept rising. Each time he fell, he rose faster. Each time he bled, he wiped it away and fought again. At last, the reptilian struck with a desperate lunge. Daniel stepped aside, not fast enough to counter, but fast enough to survive. The reptilian stumbled forward, surprised that the human had avoided him. Daniel's fist snapped forward, striking the reptilian's jaw. It wasn't a knockout blow, but it was enough to stun him. The recruits gasped. Daniel's nose bled, his ribs ached. His arms felt like fire, but he stayed on his feet. The drill master's eyes narrowed. His smile was gone. The reptilian, furious now, rushed again. He slammed Daniel into the dirt, his claws inches from Daniel's throat. But before he could finish, the drill master's voice thundered, "Enough." The fight was over. The reptilian stepped back, panting. Daniel pushed himself up, shaking but still alive. He looked across the circle at the drill master. Their eyes met for a brief moment. The drill master saw something that unsettled him. It wasn't strength. It wasn't skill. It was will. The humans will refuse to break. The recruits whispered among themselves. For the first time, their voices did not carry mockery. Some looked at Daniel with respect, others with unease. A few looked afraid. That night, while the others slept, Daniel sat awake. His body hurt, his hands swollen, his ribs bruised. He should have felt proud. But he only thought of the drill master. He remembered the way the drill master looked at him in the arena. Not with mockery, not with amusement, something else. Something colder. The first spark of fear had appeared. Daniel knew what it meant. The drill master would not let this continue. He would push harder, strike harder, and try to crush him completely. Daniel smiled through the pain. Let him try. Every night, Daniel returned to his secret training. He repeated every movement, every strike, until his body nearly collapsed. His fists grew harder, his steps sharper, his endurance stronger. He was preparing not just to survive, but to face the drill master himself. The recruits began to notice in silence. They no longer laughed at him. Some avoided him. Others watched him with curiosity. The human who once looked weak was slowly becoming something dangerous. The drill master noticed too, and for the first time in years, he felt something he had not felt toward a recruit. Not anger, not annoyance, but the shadow of doubt, and doubt in the heart of a monster was the beginning of fear. The camp grew harsher with every passing day. The drill master was relentless, and his anger toward the human only grew. He had seen Daniel survive what should have broken him. He had seen the spark of defiance in the boy's eyes, and the drill master hated it, so he decided to crush it completely. The morning began with the horn, sharp and cold. The recruits dragged themselves into the training yard, but Daniel stood straighter than before. His body was scarred, his nose still crooked, but his spirit burned hotter than ever. The drill master barked orders. Today the training was worse than usual. The recruits were forced to crawl under barbed wires while heavy machines sprayed bursts of energy across the ground. One wrong move meant burns and scars. Daniel crawled through, his elbows scraping against dirt and stone, sparks flying inches above his back. He gritted his teeth and pushed forward. Faster, human. The drill master roared. Daniel forced his body to obey, ignoring the pain. He reached the end, his arms trembling, his clothes torn. He did not collapse. He stood. The next drill was even more brutal. The recruits had to carry steel logs across the yard, each one heavier than a man. The insectoids scuttled with ease. The reptilians grunted but managed. When Daniel lifted his knees nearly buckled. The drill master's grin spread wide. Drop it, human. Drop it and crawl away like the weak creature you are. Daniel shook his head. Sweat poured down his face. His arms screamed in agony, but he moved. Step by step, he crossed the yard. His teeth clenched so hard his jaw ached. The log dug into his shoulder, cutting his skin, but he refused to let it fall. The recruits watched in silence now. There was no laughter left. When Daniel finally reached the other side, his legs gave out, and he dropped to his knees. But the log never touched the ground until he placed it there himself. The drill master's smile was gone. Hours passed, drill after drill, blow after blow. Every exercise seemed designed for one purpose: to break Daniel completely. The drill master paired him against the strongest fighters, gave him the heaviest loads, forced him to run until his body nearly collapsed. But Daniel endured. By nightfall, he was shaking, every muscle torn with pain. His body was nothing but bruises and scars. Yet when the drill master barked his last order, Daniel was still standing. That night, when the recruits lay in silence, Daniel left his bunk again. His body begged for rest, but his mind refused. He walked into the dark training yard, the moons above casting pale light over the ground, and he trained. Push-ups until his arms gave out. Sit-ups until his stomach burned. Running laps until his legs felt broken. Every strike, every motion was powered by anger. Not anger at the other recruits. Not even at the pain. Anger at the drill master. The alien had shattered his face on day one. He had humiliated him in front of everyone. But the more the drill master tried to break him, stronger Daniel became. The drill master noticed the next morning. The drill master called Daniel out in front of everyone. His deep voice carried across the yard. Human, step forward. Daniel did. His body ached. His face was scarred, but he walked with steady steps. The drill master circled him like a predator. You think you are strong now? You think you can survive? But you are wrong. I will break you today. I will break you so badly you will never rise again. He ordered Daniel into the sparring circle. The recruits gathered, their eyes wide. They had never seen the drill master fight a recruit directly. The battle began. The drill master moved with terrifying speed for his massive size. His fists slammed like stone pillars. His kicks crushed the ground beneath them. Daniel dodged one, blocked another, but the force still threw him back. He coughed blood, his ribs screaming, "Stay down, human!" The drill master barked, but Daniel stood again. Again and again. The drill master struck him down. Again and again, Daniel rose. Blood poured from his nose. His lip was split, one eye swelling shut, but he refused to surrender. The recruits watched in silence, their disbelief growing. The drill master, the monster who had broken hundreds before, could not end this human. At last, the drill master struck Daniel hard enough to send him crashing to the ground. Dust filled the air. Silence followed. The drill master loomed over him, breathing heavy, expecting the human to stay down this time. But slowly, with shaking arms, Daniel pushed himself up again. He spat blood into the dirt and lifted his fists. His voice was broken, but steady. Not today. The recruits gasped. Even the drill master froze for a moment. The match ended there, but the message was clear. Daniel had not won. He had not even come close. But he had reached the breaking point and refused to break. That night, the drill master stood alone in his quarters. His fists clenched, his jaw tight. For the first time in years, he felt something unfamiliar twisting in his chest. It was not anger. It was not pride. It was fear. The camp was quieter now. The laughter, the mockery, the taunts aimed at Daniel had faded. The recruits no longer saw him as weak prey. Some respected him, some avoided him, and some feared him. But the drill master? The drill master only grew harsher. He doubled the drills. He demanded more from Daniel than anyone else. The weights grew heavier, the runs longer, the fights more brutal. Yet Daniel endured. Each strike hardened him. Each scar became proof that he was still standing. The breaking point had passed. Now came the turning of the tide. One morning, the recruits were called into the yard. The drill master stood tall before them, his voice like rolling thunder. Today, you will prove if you can survive in the wild. No walls, no food, no weapons. Only your will. The recruits exchanged uneasy glances. Everyone knew what this meant. A survival trial. They were dropped far outside the camp, deep into alien wilderness. The ground was jagged, the air cold, and the forest full of predators. For days, the recruits scattered, each fighting to survive. The insectoids used their speed to run from danger. The reptilians hunted with claws and teeth. The cyborgs relied on strength and calculation. And Daniel endured. He had no claws, no scales, no enhancements. He relied on grit. He searched the forests for anything edible, chewed bitter plants, drank from muddy streams. When predators came, he hid, striking only when he had no other choice. His fists were raw, his body bruised, but he fought with patience. Nights were the worst. The cold bit into his skin, his stomach twisted with hunger, his broken body demanded rest. But Daniel refused to give in. Each time he closed his eyes, he remembered the drill master's fist smashing into his face on day one. That memory lit a fire inside him. If I can survive this, I can survive anything. By the fifth day, many recruits were gone. Some returned injured, dragged back by recovery drones. Others never returned at all. Daniel limped back toward the camp on the seventh day, his clothes torn, his face dirty, but his eyes burning bright. The recruits who had survived stood in formation. The drill master walked down the line, his cold eyes examining each one. When he stopped in front of Daniel, the air went silent. The human looked half dead, limping, bruised, bleeding, but he was alive. Alive when many others were not. The drill master studied him with a heavy stare. Daniel looked back without flinching. For the first time, he didn't look up at the drill master with fear. He looked straight into the eyes of the monster who once humiliated him, and in that silent stare, something shifted. The recruits noticed it too. Whispers ran through the line. The human survived. When others did not, respect turned to awe. Awe turned to fear. The tide was turning. Training continued, but the energy of the camp had changed. Daniel was no longer the weakest. He was no longer the one everyone mocked. He was the one others measured themselves against. During sparring, some recruits hesitated to face him. Others fought him with everything they had, hoping to test themselves. Daniel never bragged, never spoke much. He simply fought, endured, stood tall when it was done. The drill master pushed him harder than ever, but even his punishments lost their edge. Daniel no longer broke. He no longer even wavered. One night, the drill master stood in the shadows of the yard, watching silently as Daniel trained alone, his fists striking again and again into the air. His body drenched in sweat. The drill master's jaw tightened. His chest burned with something he had never felt toward a recruit before. This human, this fragile, this creature he had shattered on the first day, was becoming something terrifying. The recruits felt it too. One whispered to another as they lay in their bunks, "He doesn't stop. Not even at night." Another replied, voice low with unease, "It's like pain makes him stronger." The word spread. Soon, every recruit knew the human was different. The human was dangerous, and the drill master knew that danger was aimed at him. The day ended with the recruits dismissed, but Daniel stayed in the yard, staring at the stars. His body ached, but his spirit refused to rest. He thought of how far he had come. From lying broken in the dirt on day one, blood pouring from his nose, to now standing tall, stronger, sharper, harder than ever. But he also knew the truth. This was not the end. This was not victory. The drill master would never allow it. He would come harder, fiercer, and deadlier than before. Daniel clenched his fists. He was ready. The tide had turned. The prey was becoming the predator. And deep inside, Daniel knew one day soon, the predator would strike. The weeks passed, and the recruits grew sharper, stronger, harder. But everyone knew their training was moving toward one thing, the final trial. The drill master had hinted at it since the beginning. Only those who pass will earn the right to stand as soldiers. The rest will be cast aside. No one knew exactly what the trial would be, but rumors spread like wildfire. Some said it was a death match. Others whispered it was a mission deep in hostile territory. But every recruit agreed on one thing: it would break the weak and crown the strong. And this time, all eyes were on Daniel. On the morning of the trial, the recruits stood in the yard. The drill master towered before them, his armor gleaming, his scarred face cold and merciless. His voice cut through the air like a blade. "Today, you will face the truth. Today, you will prove if you are warriors or corpses." He paced slowly, his boots striking the ground with heavy thuds. "You will fight. Not against each other. Not against me. You will fight the arena." Whispers rippled through the recruits. The arena. Few had ever seen it, but everyone had heard the stories. A massive pit filled with weapons, traps, and beasts designed to kill. The drill master's lips curled into a cruel smile. Survive the arena, and you graduate. Fall, and you were never meant to live. The recruits were marched into the Colosseum-sized pit. The ground was scarred with old battles, broken stone, burned earth, and bloodstains that never washed away. Above them, lights burned harsh and white. Around the edges, officers and spectators gathered, ready to watch who lived and who died. A great metal gate creaked open. The roar that came from the darkness shook the ground. The recruits stiffened, their hearts racing. From the shadows emerged beasts hulking. Four-legged predators with teeth like swords and armored hides. Their eyes glowed red with hunger. The recruits panicked. Some screamed. Others raised weapons scavenged from racks along the walls. The drill master's voice boomed from above.
Fight or die. Chaos exploded.
The beasts charged, claws ripping through stone. A reptilian recruit was caught first, torn apart in seconds. Others scattered, slashing, stabbing, firing crude energy rifles, their shouts echoing in the vast pit. Daniel gripped a short blade in one hand, his knuckles white. His heart thundered in his chest, but he forced his mind to stay calm. He remembered the survival trial. He remembered the forest. He remembered the pain. Endure. Think. Strike when it matters. He moved fast, not to attack, but to watch. He saw how the beasts lunged, how their armor plates shifted, how their glowing eyes tracked movement. He spotted the weakness, the soft spot just beneath the jaw. A beast turned toward him, snarling, its breath hot and foul. Daniel ducked under its swipe, rolled across the dirt, and drove his blade upward into the vulnerable spot. The creature howled, thrashed, then collapsed. Gasps rang out. The recruits saw it. The officers saw it. Even the drill master saw it. The human had slain a monster, but there was no time to rest. Another beast lunged, pinning Daniel to the ground. Its teeth snapped inches from his throat. He strained, holding its jaws apart with every ounce of his strength. His muscles screamed, his vision blurred. But he refused to let go. With a desperate roar, Daniel twisted, forcing the blade upward again, ramming it into the beast's eye. The monster shrieked, fell limp, and Daniel shoved it aside, panting, his body trembling with exhaustion. He pushed himself to his feet. Blood ran down his arm. Dirt coated his skin. But he was still alive, and around him. Other recruits were falling, one by one. The trial lasted hours. The beasts kept coming, wave after wave. The recruits who survived banded together, but many still fell. Only a handful remained standing when the final beast collapsed into the dirt. Silence filled the arena. Smoke and blood hung in the air. The survivors swayed on their feet, barely able to stand. Then the drill master entered the pit. His boots crushed the dirt as he walked. His eyes scanned the survivors, cold and calculating. Finally, his gaze locked on Daniel. The human was covered in wounds, his face bruised, his body battered. But he stood tall, unyielding, his blade still in his hand. The drill master stopped in front of him. The silence was suffocating. Then, for the first time, the drill master spoke his name. Human. Daniel met his eyes. Breathing hard but steady. "You have survived," the drill master said. His voice was low, almost grudging. "But survival is not enough. Graduation requires more." The recruits glanced at each other nervously. What did he mean? The drill master slowly raised a hand and pointed straight at Daniel. "You will fight me." The arena erupted with gasps. The human versus the drill master. It was madness. No one had ever faced him in the pit and lived, but Daniel's jaw tightened. His grip on the blade tightened. His heart hammered. But he did not look away. This was the moment he had been waiting for since day one. The moment to face the monster who had shattered his face into two. See if he could shatter the drill master in return. The arena was silent. Dust hung in the air. Blood stained the ground from the trial's beasts. Only a handful of recruits remained alive, but none of them mattered now. All eyes were on Daniel, the scarred human, and the drill master, the towering alien warrior who had broken him on day one. This was no longer training. This was judgment. The drill master drew his weapon, a heavy staff made of black alloy, its edges sparking with energy. He spun it once, the sound cracking through the air like thunder. His voice rolled across the pit. "Face me, human. Show me if your suffering has given you strength or if you are still nothing." Daniel's body ached. Every breath burned his lungs. Every muscle screamed for rest. His blade was cracked, chipped from battles with the beasts. But his eyes burned with something the drill master could not crush resolve. He tightened his grip and stepped forward. "Let's finish this." The drill master attacked first, his staff a blur of metal and power. The strike slammed into the ground where Daniel had been standing a second before, stone shattering like glass. The human rolled, barely dodging. The next strike came faster, aimed at his head. He blocked with his blade, the impact so strong it nearly tore the weapon from his hand. His arm shook, but he held. The recruits above gasped. None of them had ever seen anyone survive even one direct clash with the drill master. The alien sneered. "You last longer than I thought." Daniel spat blood and answered, "You hit weaker than I remember, for the first time." Drill master's expression flickered. The fight raged across the pit. The drill master's blows were heavy, each one powerful enough to break bones. Daniel could not match his strength, but he was faster. He dodged, ducked, and countered, striking at weak points whenever he found an opening. Each cut he delivered was small, but they added up. A slice across the drill master's arm, a stab at his side, a deep cut on his leg. The alien roared in fury. No recruit had ever dared to wound him. Now the human was bleeding him bit by bit. In front of everyone, the crowd leaned forward, silent, breathless. Then the drill master changed tactics. He stopped swinging wild. He slowed down. His movements became precise, deadly, controlled. Daniel realized too late. The drill master had been toying with him. A crushing blow struck Daniel's ribs. He heard the crack. Pain exploded through his chest. He staggered, fell to one knee. The drill master loomed above him, staff raised for the killing strike. His voice thundered across the pit. "This is the end. You were a fool to think you could stand as my equal." The staff came down at the last second. Daniel rolled forward, inside the strike. The staff smashed into the dirt where his head had been. Dust and rock exploded into the air. Daniel surged upward, his blade flashing. He drove it into the drill master's side with every ounce of his remaining strength. The alien roared, spinning, backhanding Daniel across the arena. The human hit the ground hard, blood spraying from his mouth. His blade was still stuck in the drill master's body. Daniel groaned, forcing himself up. His vision blurred. His body begged him to stop, but his mind screamed louder, "Not yet. Not while he's still standing." The drill master staggered, blood running down his side. Rage twisted his face. He charged faster than before, staff raised high. Daniel had no weapon left. No strength left. Just one chance. He waited. He timed it. At the last possible moment, as the staff came down, Daniel lunged forward, slamming his shoulder into the drill master's chest. The alien stumbled. For a brief instant, his balance broke. Daniel's hands found the staff. With a roar, he twisted it free from the drill master's grip and spun behind him. And then, with every ounce of fury, pain, and determination that had carried him from day one, Daniel drove the staff down across the drill master's spine. The crack echoed through the arena. The drill master fell to his knees, then to the ground, motionless. Silence. No one moved. No one breathed. The recruits stared in shock. The officers stood frozen. Even the arena lights seemed to dim. The human had done the impossible. Daniel stood over the fallen drill master, the weapon still in his hands. His chest heaved with ragged breaths. Blood dripped from his wounds. His eyes never left the figure at his feet. The same man who had shattered his face on the first day now lay shattered before him, a slow, stunned whisper spread through the recruits. The human won. Then, louder, the human defeated the drill master. Finally, it erupted into a roar that shook the entire arena. Daniel dropped the staff and raised his head. He had nothing left to prove. The drill master had broken him once. But on graduation day, the human had broken the drill master. And from that day forward, no one in the galaxy would ever laugh at humanity again.